So, yes, this is another episode, in a sense of saying, of Pancake Marathon. And it's been a moment since I've recorded a podcast and all that jazz and such. And yet, it's been a good moment, right? Sometimes it's a season, sometimes it's a moment, and sometimes it's a lifetime. I mean, what is the difference of saying that some need a whole sentence, some need just a word, and some need just silence, you know? And so I was doing a lot of self care, a lot of reflecting and getting good for me so I can be good for others. And yet, essentially, this is Pancake Marathon, where I share my experience, strength, and hope about life in recovery and all that good stuff. And just, essentially, how do I carry the message? How do I practice the principles in all my affairs? That's essentially what life's about, recovery. And in and of itself, it's all about relating and finding unity and just essentially getting your peace of mind and finding way in all moments to act in an accordance of what is your peace of mind. That's essentially what life is really all about, be it recovery, be it whatever it may be. The steps in and of itself are written so simply that you can apply them in all your affairs. And that's the amazingness about recovery on all aspects of itself. And so thank you very much for making this part of your life, regardless if it's recovery, regardless if it's not. You always focus on the messenger. You always focus on the message. You don't focus on the messenger. It doesn't matter who's saying it, how they're saying it. Oh, they didn't say it right. They didn't say it wrong. It's like the same thing at that point. So it's essentially, what are you getting out of this? Are you going to smile now, or are you going to smile later? You get to smile, and that's more of a point. Yet, thank you very much for coming to this moment in time to grow and, all that good stuff. And so this is a Pancake Marathon. Welcome. Hi. So, I don't know, I'm just trying to put my life together, essentially, basically overall. Yet there's a point where what I would like to talk about today is essentially carrying the message, and how you go about carrying the message. Because I've had a sponsee recently. They said they got in contact with their old friend, and it was a using friend, and as such, and they said hi and all that kind of stuff. And then it got to a point where their friend asked them if they knew anybody that had anything, basically, right? And so my sponsee blocked them, and that's great. As I usually always say, essentially, that if you're not using, then you're not doing anything wrong. And if you're making progress, that's even better, essentially. And so, in a sense of saying, it's kind of up in the air in a sense of, from this standpoint, of I'm in a halfway house and they're in a halfway house, and so when you physically use, and you get found out, essentially, you get asked to leave because you didn't want it, and this is how they hold you accountable and all that kind of stuff, right? And so in an outside kind of recovery aspect, you have it to where you can go and physically use, and you might not get caught up right away, right? But the truth is always going to set you free, and the truth is always going to come to the surface no matter what, essentially, right? It's like the seed that you don't have to keep watering because it's going to be self-sufficient in that sense, and it's going to keep going, And so, there's a point where I said, essentially, that it comes down to carrying the message, ultimately. Yes, you didn't physically use, and which is great. You didn't do anything wrong. And the reason why I say the whole halfway house part is because, in moments there's like three kinds of sobriety. There's the physical, the emotional, mental. Some could say those would make that 3 counts of sobriety. And then you have your spiritual, right? So yeah, I think it's a simple program, and that's overcomplicating it. So going from the whole 4 bases and all that kind of stuff to 4 counts of sobriety to that of, it's a simple program. So there's 3 aspects of sobriety, right? 3 kinds of sobriety. You got your physical, you got your emotional, mental, and because those happening on the same playing field, and then you got your spiritual, essentially. Now, it's a balancing act. It really, really is. Now, how I said, or my guidance, because, I don't think there's advice in recovery. If that's suitable for you, and that's how you find yourself best within being an active part of your recovery, then go for it. That's amazing, right? Yet, I don't think there's advice other than the steps in the literature and essentially what is, a face of AA, essentially Tradition 6, right? And not that any member, regardless how qualified they can make themselves or how much desire, which is the only basic means of what is required to be a member, essentially, that, so I think in how I carry my message is that there's only guidance and suggestions within an aspect of what seems like advice, but like I just said, there isn't really as such as a thing as advice in recovery. And so through the guidance and suggestions, essentially, guidance as, a suggestion is, by definition, is an idea put forth for consideration, an idea put forth for consideration. And guidance is more like what can seem as advice along the same lines. Yet, like I just said, I don't see advice as something other than the steps, as such as what Tradition 6 is all about, And so through Tradition 5, how I carry my message, which is always through experience, strength, and hope. Everyone has that as such. So essentially, as I was saying, is that, how my guidance suggested, essentially, that it's great that they approached it that way, that they didn't do anything wrong. Yes, they said that they felt sad and all that kind of stuff. Yet, being that sadness and happiness are fleeting, essentially, and it's all about your foundation of being, finding joy and gratitude and having humility, right? Being open, willing, and honest, essentially. That it's great that they approached it the way that they approached it. At that moment, that's great. Yet, within the growing along spiritual lines and making progress, maybe next time, because it's essentially about carrying the message and planting the seed of recovery in of itself, to simply say. And so, next time. So going off of what I was saying, to simply say, because there's a point where maybe this doesn't have the highest sound quality, or maybe it's not put together very well for some to say, how is that, we could say, right, in the sense of saying that the God of your own understanding is wrong, right? And so it's absolutely about attraction rather than promotion. Being a leader, a trusted servant upon itself, into that of carrying a message through your experience, strength, and hope. And yet, I only touch base on that because I stopped the other part of the recording of within the topic area, and then now I'm continuing it. And yet, this is just some context of how I approach life. I'm not attempting to fit in anyone else's box and all that good stuff. And yet, more of my point is that if I say repeated things, because I don't really want to listen to the per se of the other whole thing, and it might sound bad in a sense, or not sound right, or whatever. It's just things are supposed to happen the way they're supposed to happen. And why be so serious? Absolutely. So let's continue. Thank you. So continuing on, essentially with what I was saying about, you know, which is simply, how do you ghost somebody in recovery and feel that it's okay, essentially to say. As I was saying before, that, you know, um, the way that my sponsee approached it was great, right? Because did they use? Physically, did they use? No, right? They may have set themselves up for some emotional turmoil. Okay. And which is, at a point where they get to be at a point in their life where they have grown and they get to see this growth and really realize it. I mean, I even asked them, hey, do you see your growth? Do you see that? And their answer was, kind of, which is, what else is it supposed to be? That's a great answer, right? It's almost the same thing as saying the closed mouth don't get fed. And the only stupid question has a stupid answer of a no to it. And I say that in the context of, you could have said anything, right? Like if you're on in the legal court thing and you don't ask, you're gonna go through the whole entire process of it. And yet, if you ask, "Hey, can I get off early?" They're gonna be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, why not? You asked, and okay." Because it's essentially you taking responsibility, accountability. Because that judge, in a sense of saying, is kind of acting as your parent in a simple way of saying, and because you didn't put the action into taking responsibility, of course, there's points where you can't just go around harming everybody, all right? Regardless of how justified or unjustified it may be. It's simply to say it's about you. Your feelings are valid, right? Yet going and yelling at somebody or going and using in any way, shape, or form, that's not justified, right? There's no justification for you seeing that, the slogan of feelings aren't facts. And they're not. They're not facts enough to lead you into harming somebody else, right? And so, yeah, you're feeling the way that you feel and all that, yet it comes down to a simple fact of, how did you grow? How did you come to terms with getting to your peace of mind? Maybe it was quick and maybe it was slow. It's okay. It is okay to feel the way that you feel. Yet it's not okay to act out of this new character, in a sense of saying, yes, it happens. You're stinking thinking. It's life. Life gets lifey sometimes, and you got to live life on life's terms. Absolutely. And so to continue with the whole discussion of how do you ghost somebody appropriately in recovery, is there such a thing in a sense of saying? And so basically, there's a point where my sponsee, yes, they went ahead and they blocked them, that the one that was contacting them, and they haven't talked to them in so long. They were using with them and stuff as such, and they blocked them because they felt that would motivate them, trigger them essentially to go and use or just get some unmanageability in their life, and them being fresh in recovery and all that kind of stuff, and with them still attempting to get a strong foundation of loving themselves and knowing that their shoes fit just right and all that kind of stuff, and that they do deserve to take up space, filling that void, that hurt that they led themselves into, and changing out for something else, essentially, right? It's never that you don't have the time or there's not enough room. You just got to change it. You got to change how you look at something, right? And so it's never that you don't have enough room. It's that replace it with something else, right? It's almost along the lines of what cross addiction would seemingly be, essentially. And yet, my suggestion comes down to that it's always about carrying the message. And it's about being able to attract rather than promote, let them find out their own way in life and stuff as such, lead them, show them the light, meet them where they're at, and yet don't control them. right? Don't be a good narcissist and be neurotic about it, essentially. And so I said, next time, maybe go ahead and say, hey, I don't do that anymore. And as a reply, right, as such as I don't do that anymore. I'm in recovery. I'm an active part of it, of my recovery, and I'm at this place, and talking about the halfway house, right, or just any recovery aspect, basically. And this is where I'm at in my life right now. And yeah, I value you and what we went through. Yet right now, I don't want to partake in that experience anymore. I want to do something different. And so, I appreciate that you reached out and, all that good stuff. And yet, I just want you to know that this is where I'm at in my life. If you keep on contacting me about as such, I might not respond. I might block you. So it's more on me than you. You're going to find your way in life, and yet it's okay. And so that's what I mean by it's all about planting the seed of recovery, carrying the message, right? Because the simple fact of my sponsee feeling sad and just this whatever emotional roller coaster or whatever it may be that they're going through, essentially, And so with them going through this emotional roller coaster or whatever it may be, it is sad when you could say that you had great times with someone, regardless if you were using or not. Yeah, sure. When you're using, you're running away from life itself, right? The life that you led yourself into, that you built. And within recovery, you're in a sense of leading yourself out of that pain, right? You stop digging down, right? When you're in a hole, how do you get out of the hole? You stop digging, essentially, right? Okay. And then sometimes you dig down so far that the only way to get out of that hole is don't throw down the shovel and start using your hands, right? You keep that shovel and you start digging to the side of it, right? Essentially, so you can go ahead and get some dirt and pile it up so you can stand on it, so that you can reach that point in life where you give yourself a point to getting to a point of reaching up and reaching to that hand that's there to help you, essentially, or whatever it may be it a rope to where you can go ahead and pull yourself up. You might fall and get tangled up and because you don't know how to climb the rope very well, and that's okay. It really is. you know, and then you go and you launch yourself out of that hole, right? Because some places, it's about that it's sometimes it's a season, sometimes it's a moment, and sometimes it's a lifetime, right? And sometimes it's just a phase within, the painstaking matter of fact of just being able to see that you made it this far. Count your wins, essentially. Go for it. Every small thing, right? You got a drink of water, right? Gratitude, absolutely. Humility that you were able to get that drink of water, that you were able to have these things, to get to be part of your life. And yet, so they're feeling that moment of sadness, right? And that's the power of step 5, in a sense of saying, where you're reaching out, you're not isolating, you're seeing your part, because it is so easy to play therapist, right, for somebody else. But when you're in it, oh my goodness, how do you get out of it, right? You take a step back, you look at it differently, you approach it with, a different set of eyes and the view and all that kind of stuff. You stop perceiving it and you get into some perspective, right? You really see what's going on. You reflect and all that good stuff. And so with that feelings that they're feeling, which are valid, absolutely. And yet, it's never about justifying how you reacted to a situation, right? It's about acting accordingly, practicing your principles in all your affairs. How do you have a peace of mind today? And how do you show others by being the light in that moment of the leader of, this is how I did it in this moment. This is my experience, strength, and hope. And this is how I got it, recovered in this moment. But yet, that's the past, right? The past is easy. It's done. Don't ever be so willing to make the past into your future, essentially. And so, in and of itself, to simply say, you get to have a life, that you get to lead yourself into a peace of mind. It's not that all the recovery tools and literature and whatever it may be are going to resolve all future endeavors, right? And it's not that they're not, right? Because you put in the work in now. That seemingly insignificant thing that you do to change your life today will significantly change your life tomorrow. It's absolutely that simple, Essentially, though, when life gets lifey, is it really that simple anymore? Well, of course it is. It can be. It's like what I was saying about the whole smile thing. You can smile now, you can smile later, or you can smile because you get to, right? Just smile, you know, and so, it everything's possible, yet it's you that can make it meaningless. It's you that can go ahead and rip the heart out of whatever situation it may be and make it miserable. Being so serious, it's funny because, like I've said, and I'll say again, I don't carry my message of experience, strength, and hope of being serious because I know when I have a character defect of being disciplined, essentially, being so fearful that things are going to go out of control and out of whack because, oh my gosh, things aren't being done appropriately in a way that I see fit because I'm just trying to control too much. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that's why I don't think being busy and being serious is anything other than appropriate for somebody else that sees that is their God of their own understanding. That's their peace of mind. That's how they're being an active part of their recovery. That's where they're at. That is their ability to comprehend life. And yet it's about making progress, right? It's about growing along spiritual lines. And so busy to me is really how I phrase it as being productive. And being serious to me is how I phrase it as being committed, passionate, dedicated, willing to keep showing up for the miracle of life or whatever it may be, right? And so it's always about that. Finding a way to carry the message through your experience, strength, and hope. Tradition 6, you can't become the face of any recovery program. But Tradition 5, you have something to say. Tradition 4, say it in a way that isn't going to steal someone else's peace of mind. And give it some time. Give time. Show them that they can do it. And that's kind of what it means to carry a message. It might not be great for everyone else. And they might not hear it. They may feel so demeaned, so willing to beat themselves up that they don't hear it. And let me give some clarification on that as well. To some, listening is everything. Oh, you're not listening to me. You're just hearing what I'm saying. Right? You're just hearing the words happening and you're reacting. Okay. Well, how I carry my experience, strength, and hope is that hearing is everything. Listening is nothing. Right? Listening is in the same sense of what is perceiving, being busy. Right? And so, hearing is everything because hearing is about not just going through life reacting. The elevator doors open. Oh, I heard the ding, or I listened to the ding, right? And I go, oh, you stopped talking. So now I'm listening for that cue to go ahead and be triggered, essentially motivated to just start talking, right? And so hearing to me is, you actually being patient, being human, having humility, essentially, and joy of just being in the now moment, which is what strength is as recovery jargon or talk or whatever it may be, right? And so, yeah, that's why it's essentially, going back on this topic of how to ghost somebody appropriately in recovery, essentially, and how do you essentially carry the message of recovery? Your recovery, right? You're not the face of AA. You are an active part of recovery, but how do you keep on being a participant in that? How do you keep on answering the door to the messenger so that the messenger doesn't feel abused or whatever it may be, or doesn't add up so much compiled, moments of blowing your house down, right? Um, because you have an attitude of gratitude, the indifference of opinions of religion or whatever it may be, the spiritual principles, right? That God, that good early direction. God's never too late. Sometimes you can seem and think that you are, but you're not. You're right there, just in time. Just in time, right? You made it. You made it. Don't ever think that you're not an active part of recovery when you go and, oh, I relapsed. Okay, and so you did. Okay, that's great. That's just now your experience, strength, and hope kicking in, right? You have something to offer. You needed to go through that so that you can give this healing purpose to yourself, sharing essentially, so that when someone comes to a program to basically work on themselves, because they're the program, and sharing is really how you heal. So share within a program so that you can respect that program because you shared. And so, I think at this moment, this is an appropriate time to go ahead and let this podcast be what it is. Absolutely. Thank you. So, in closing this podcast, essentially, I hope that you found something that requires you to keep coming back. Because ultimately, that's really what it is. And that's what it comes down to. Finding something that requires you to keep coming back. Because why not? You get to. Find something in yourself, whatever it may be, leading yourself into keeping a peace of mind, going with that moment in life. And, I hope that I also line something up for somebody today so they can lead themselves into being able to carry the message within practicing the principles on their affairs, essentially. Yet, ultimately, I really do hope you find something that requires you to keep coming back, finding a God of your own understanding, whatever that may be, finding your peace of mind. Have a great day. Thank you. Oh, and the next moment is kind of how I feel about recovery. It's a song. I didn't write it yet. It seemingly seems very moment of, yeah, thank you. Have a great day, everybody. And always remember, your shoes do fit just right. You do deserve to take up space. Thank you.
I'll follow you wherever you go. Stay close to you, 'cause darling, you're my home.